up that. We stopped in the spring at around 650, 652, 651, but anyway, we had gone through the Lord's Prayer as petitions to the unconscious, right? And so in 652, paragraph 652, Jung is talking about how God might not instantly become the sum of all goods, okay? He may not be the sum of all that's good. It's too big of a leap of faith even for Christ. And so Christ asked the people to pray as one of the petitions, deliver us from evil, okay? Because Yahweh was raining down evil upon Job, right? And so at the time of Christ, 500 years later, he's still saying, well, if you're going to pray that he delivers us from evil, right? And so what, Jung is being a little bit, sardonic or something. He's being a little funny, but he's like pulling the hair of the old religious graybeards by saying, man, even Christ didn't believe that God was all good. Something like that. I mean, God transformed from this force that was raining all sorts of shit down on people to being the good God. That's the message of Christianity, that God is good. Satan is bad, but Satan is in hell, right? He's not in heaven. And so the Christian God is all good, theoretically, okay? But Jung says even Christ didn't believe that, because he taught the Lord's Prayer, which said that you have to petition to be delivered from evil, right? And let's see. Oh, lead us not into temptation also. Okay, so then 653, how does Revelation balance with the idea of a loving Father? Because the Bible ends with Revelation, right? And what Jung says is that all of that good allows evil to accumulate. Okay, so what he's saying is that the psychic energy that's good, okay, I needed that adjustment type thing, right? Where, okay, you're goody two-shoes at high school and you do everything right, but then you really have to do something wrong, right? So like in high school, I was a straight arrow. But, by God, we used to go down to the Chrysler Bar in downtown Yokohama when I was 16, right? And they would serve us because we'd come in, we were Americans, they couldn't tell how old we were, and they would serve us, right? And so sometimes you have to be a little bad in order to be good. And so that was the compensation for all that goodness of, towing the mark in high school and being, the perfect person. And then,
sometimes all that masculine perfection energy, right?
Right.
You're talking about.
Right. Well, you're trying to be perfect at high school, but on the weekends you have to go to the Chrysler Bar. It was named Chrysler. Yeah. And 20 years later, when I went to a bar,
if you get it out of balance, it's going to come up and get you from behind.
It gets you from behind if it's out of balance. If there's too much good, something is going to get you from the rear. It's like these fundamentalist preachers, right?
Who suddenly end up with a stripper out there.
Well, yeah, they end up with a stripper. They end up with a man, right? The one guy who ended up being gay.
Double whammy.
Right.
I remember him. What was his name? I know who you talked about.
Right, but
Jimmy
Jimmy and Tammy Faye Bakker, those were the
Jimmy
big,
Swaggart.
yeah.
The Swaggart's come back out,
Oh,
and now he's,
Yeah.
he's letting his son run things, but he's still
crying.
he's on a comeback.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but all these guys are not as perfect as they seem, and so so what Jung is saying is that in the psyche, if the psychic energy goes too far in one direction, then over here on the opposite end, it's like a rubber band. It's like, and this is enantiodromia. It comes bouncing back to the other side. And
So that's how he's justifying evil as being a fourth member of the quaternity. Then,
right, and he's saying that, you know, Revelation was talking about the emergence of the Antichrist. Okay. And he's saying that the Antichrist started to emerge, they're saying in the 11th century, but certainly Edinger is talking about the Antichrist emerging from 1500.
And what's that a compensation for?
Well, the Antichrist is saying that we can't be perfectly good, right? And so what happened in 1500 was science started to give people permission not to believe in this perfect sky god, right? Because science started to punch holes in the myth that God was good, okay? That God was perfect. The myth wasn't true, you know. Science was finding that the myth wasn't true. And so if the myth isn't true, then why am I believing it, right? And if I start asking that question, then it's every man for himself. Now we're down here, and it's dog eat dog, and may the best man or woman win, and all
I
of
thought
that.
you were talking about Revelation.
Well, yeah, Revelation
What does
is.
it have to do with Galileo?
Well, Revelation is.
Well, people, the power left the church. People began to become their own centers of the universe.
Right, and so what Jung is saying is that Revelation.
No,
Well, he's saying that Revelation, it prefigures the emergence of the Antichrist. Okay, so Revelation was written, I don't know,
600 or 400?
I don't know, 4 to 600 A.D., right? And it was accepted into the Bible. Maybe it was before 325 when the Bible was more or less put together, right? At the Council of Nicaea. And so the Bible was finalized, and Revelation is the last book. And what Jung is saying is that Revelation prefigures an enantiodromia.
Oh, okay.
Okay. It prefigures the pullback in the other direction. And the pullback in the other direction is that the Antichrist is at work. Okay. And so Jung was saying from the 11th century, Edinger is saying from the 15th century, this Antichrist was in the system, and it's a 1,000-year cycle, or at least it was in the age of whatever, Pisces, right? In the age of Pisces, it was a 1,000-year cycle. Nobody has any idea for Aquarius. But in the 1,000-year cycle of Pisces, they said that 1,000 years God would be good, and then there's room for
All hell would break loose.
All hell would break loose, and they were right. Okay, and so in the 20th century, we killed 170 million people in wars. Okay, and a lot of them were good Christians. Okay, a lot of them. You know, the Russians were Russian Orthodox and all this stuff, and the Russians pushed religion right out of the place, right? And
Well, they replaced it with Stalin.
Yeah, which what became, that was their god, right?
Right.
All right. And so, anyway, in 654 then, what Jung said is a manifestation of Satan is to be expected. And so Stalin, for Russia, was like Satan. Okay, after World War II, he killed 20 million Russians. Okay, I mean, he was Satan personified.
It's almost like, yeah, I don't know. It's like that's the shadow.
Yeah.
Seeking a balance.
Yeah, it's the shadow seeking a balance.
You get too
But then that doesn't work either, right? And so when
Well, the balance works, but there's no.
well, the balance works, but then it's not right, okay? And so Satan can't succeed either on the other end of the spectrum.
Well, it's also not right to go too far to the good side either, because
Right.
there's always sacrifice involved there. So.
That's right. So anyway, the point is too much good creates a compensation, right? And so, you know,
So
that,
when that became individualized, that's what I was trying to say earlier. You have that.
So there's a paradox here, because your main theme is that if people individuate, then they're going to recognize and be conscious of their shadow,
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the first thing.
and
you
they
gotta
won't
integrate.
act on it.
Well, they may act on it. I mean, Jung.
But if they act on it to the full, then you're going to end up with the same thing that we had.
Only if you're out of balance. If you're
Okay.
trying to keep to the middle, it's fine. You know,
Okay. We're not there
you're not
yet,
perfect.
John.
I'm just saying it's a paradox, what you're
It
saying.
it is a paradox that we have to learn with to live with ourselves. But